safe to say that you all know why we're here at this point. Each month, I do a video series called How the Internet Fell Out of Love with Blank, which is as self-explanatory as it sounds. Since I started this series, I have gotten many a request for singer, actor, and boy band phantom Justin Timberlake, and those requests have only gotten louder since Britney Spears wrote about their relationship in her book following the end of her conservatorship agreement. But before we get into the fall, we of course have to talk about the rise, the NSYNC days, the pivot to acting, the fact that his music was inescapable for all of 2013. There's a lot to get through, and in the event that I still miss something, you can yell at me about that here or anywhere in the lovely little link tree that I made down below. Justin Timberlake got his start in the entertainment industry on the all-new Mickey Mouse Club, where he starred alongside celebrities like Ryan Gosling, Christina Aguilera, and of course Britney Spears in the 90s. And just for organization's sake, we're gonna do all of the Britney stuff at once, so if it doesn't seem like I'm referencing her as much at first, I will later, I promise. From there, he was recruited into a little boy band called NSYNC, and boy bands are kind of a funny concept in retrospect, not including K-pop in this conversation. I'm talking purely about the Western depictions of them. The last big one we had was One Direction, but they weren't exactly the visual and choreo-heavy kind of group that NSYNC was. Not gonna lie, I think I was a little young for the mainstream appeal of this, but from what I understand, this whole performance package was all the rage in 1998. And like One Direction had a breakout star in Harry Styles, NSYNC had a breakout supernova in the form of Justin Timberlake. I should mention that NSYNC sort of dissolved for a number of reasons, a long legal battle with their manager Lou Pearlman, who has done a litany of various crimes, the overall decline of popularity in boy bands that seems to be a sort of cyclical trend, like I bet in 2030 we'll be due for a new one, and it seems like all the NSYNC guys are friendly now, but at points there was some bad blood there. At the very least, Lance Bass has spoken publicly about the tension surrounding their decision to break up, but it's clear that decision benefited Justin greatly. I don't think he was necessarily way more talented than everyone else in the group, it was just, you know, the pieces fell where they did and he played the game the best. Because Justin's solo career adventure included an indispensable secret weapon that none of the others had.
You were my sun, you were my earth, but you didn't know all the ways that I loved you. No.
Am I going to deny that Justin Timberlake has bangers, especially in his earlier era and career? No. Some of those songs are pretty good, but I would be remiss if I did not point out that the reason why a lot of those songs are so good is because Timbaland produced them. Timbaland is a critically acclaimed music producer known for his innovation in the world of R&B. Justin was a pretty talented vocalist and performer already, and combined with Timbaland's R&B influences and strong production point of view, it was just a match made in heaven. It started with Timberlake's Justified in 2002, and then Timbaland went on to produce Future Sex Love Sounds in 2006, and eventually the 2020 Experience, which came out in 2013, but we'll get there. Timbaland's production on both Justified and Future Sex Love Sounds is hands down the reason that his solo career took off as quickly as it did, because the music was good. Although some argue that the music was so palatable because it was coming from a conventionally attractive white man. This is the origin of the criticism that Justin Timberlake has historically appropriated black culture in his music and used his proximity to blackness to benefit his own career while not doing anything to advocate for the black artists in his orbit. This will manifest in future online discourse, but we're still in 2004 in the timeline here where Twitter was not invented yet. So by this point in time, Justin Timberlake was sort of solidifying himself as a solo artist with an impressive catalog for somebody with his level of experience, and he was suddenly being afforded a bunch of different opportunities to platform himself. And one of those opportunities was to perform alongside Janet Jackson during the Super Bowl halftime show. And it goes without saying that we're gonna have to talk about Nipplegate. But before we get to that, I did want to take a moment to thank today's sponsor, CareOf. CareOf is a subscription service that ships high-quality, personalized vitamins, supplements, and powders conveniently to your door every month. All you do to get started is take a short, simple online quiz about your lifestyle and health goals, and CareOf will give you doctor-backed recommendations. One of my goals this year was to get better about my nutrient intake, especially because I'm a really picky eater, and my personalized vitamin pack from CareOf has helped me get to a better routine and ensure I'm prioritizing my health goals. My favorite part of CareOf is the convenience factor because it feels like I'm easily easily able to take control of my health, which should be a #1 priority for everyone, but you know, it can take a backseat sometimes just because of the busyness of life and whatnot. For 50% off of your first month subscription with CareOf, go to takecareof.com. You can use my code KaylaSays50. You can also use the link in the description down below and enter my code KaylaSays50 there. That is 50% off of your first month subscription, and thank you so much to CareOf for sponsoring today's video. So during Janet Jackson's Super Bowl halftime performance in Houston, she performed a medley of her own songs before performing Rock Your Body with surprise guest Justin Timberlake. As Justin sang the lyric, "I'm gonna have you naked by the end of this song," he tore open part of her costume with the intention to reveal a red lacy bra of sorts. At least that's what Janet Jackson has said. But unfortunately, he tore the wrong part of the costume, exposing her boob to 140 million viewers, and the incident became commonly known as Nipplegate. Both Janet and Justin issued separate apologies after it happened, and the whole incident resulted in an 8-year investigation by the FCC, as well as a $550,000 fine for CBS. During the Grammys that same year, Justin Timberlake attended and issued a scripted apology when he was accepting his first 2 Grammy Awards, but Janet Jackson was removed as a presenter and she did not attend at all. Janet was treated rather horribly during this time. She got blacklisted from a lot of radio and television stations. She lost a lot of opportunities because of it, and she didn't really do anything. So it's very clear that on all levels, the Janet Jackson incident was an accident. It was an accident on Janet's part, and it was an accident on Justin's part. He went to rip off part of the costume to reveal something else, and he ripped off the wrong part of the costume. I think what is apparent, though, is that around this time, the industry was particularly cruel to women and black women, and so Janet suffered the majority of the consequences and criticism for something that Justin technically did, even though it wasn't really his fault. And as the years have gone on and we're more far removed from that incident, I think time has been kinder to Janet in the sense that, #1, everybody has their titties out at every award show and every red carpet, like it's not that big of a deal anymore. And 2, it was very clear that there were various systems at play to punish Janet for that incident. For example, in 2018, when the former president of CBS, Les Moonves, was getting investigated, it came out that after the whole incident, which occurred on, the CBS network, and they got fined, Les Moonves personally saw to it, allegedly, that he was going to ruin Janet Jackson's career for that whole situation. So there were massive systems at play here, and is that Justin Timberlake's fault? Not necessarily. Should he probably have used his status to defend Janet more so in the moment? Yeah, I think so, because, he was kind of playing it off in a way that, his privilege affords him, in the sense that when that first incident happened, Janet, there were reports that she was, crying off stage and was very sort of traumatized by the whole incident, whereas that same day, Justin Timberlake was joking about it in sort of like a cheeky way and being like, we gave you guys something to talk about. It clearly didn't affect him much in the moment, in the way that it affected Janet. So could he have said something more around that time to defend her and be like, hey, it was my fault? Yeah, probably. And also, Justin never really got any consequences, for his mistake. They invited him back several years later to do his own Super Bowl halftime performance, and in that performance, obviously Janet didn't come out to perform with him or whatever. People thought that was gonna happen, but he did make a little reference to it with the song Rock Your Body. So do I think Justin Timberlake did anything malicious here? No. Do I think he could have defended Janet more in the moment? Yes, but I think that also was a sign of his immaturity and inexperience with this kind of controversy at the time. In fairness, Justin did apologize for the incident and for not defending Janet multiple times after 2004, giving this statement in an interview back in 2006. It's an understatement to say it was sort of unfair if you consider it 50-50. I probably got 10% of the blame, and that says something about society. I think that America's harsher on women, and I think America's unfairly harsh on ethnic people. After the controversy, Justin laid low until around 2006, when he released Future Sex Love Sounds, and that album also had a really deep R&B influence like Justified did. The lead single from the album, Sexy Back, was just everywhere, and in retrospect, it is insane that we let this dude say I'll let you whip me if I misbehave, but at the time, he had the likability factor that gave him just enough charm to pull it off. And this was really the rise in Justin's cemented solo artist likability post-controversy. This was also around the time he first hosted SNL and did the Dick in a Box skit with Andy Samberg. He was also collaborating with a ton of other artists, and it seemed like his trajectory was just going up. And then he decided to make a surprising but brief career pivot. So I don't have much to say about Justin Timberlake's acting career. He was in a few comedies in like the earlier 2000s, from like 2008 onwards. He was in Bad Teacher with Cameron Diaz. He was in the Friends with Benefits movie with Mila Kunis. I forget the title because there was also another Friends with Benefits type movie that came out around that time. They're like very similar in title and concept. And then he starred alongside Jesse Eisenberg and Andrew Garfield in The Social Network, which is a film about the creation of Facebook. And it's a pretty well-liked movie. It's considered like a prestige film for the time. And once that came out, people were like, oh, maybe Justin Timberlake is really solidifying his acting career. Like, he's gonna make that full-time transition. And then he never did anything like that again. Fast forward to 2013, and Justin Timberlake plans the music comeback of the ages with his new album, The 2020 Experience, once again produced by Timbaland. And this is probably the peak of Justin's overall likability, in my opinion. I remember Mirrors and Suit and Tie and even Push Your Love Girl. Like, all of those songs were everywhere for the entire year. Every Sweet 16, every high school party, just to put in perspective where I was around this time. And he was cool, you know, people liked his reoccurring comedy bits on SNL and with Jimmy Fallon. He sort of brought an elevated aesthetic to his new music with the literal suit and tie and collaborating with Jay-Z. Like, this was the coolest Justin Timberlake ever was to most people. And am I gonna say the album itself is bad? No, it's a pretty solid pop record. I feel like in general, the defining pop culture moments of 2013 and 2014 were so uniquely specific to the time and would be rather inconsequential now, like the Ellen selfie or Flappy Bird. Justin Timberlake's cool era kind of resonates somewhere around that point for me. It hit at the right time and people really bought into the vibe, and then the culture progressed, 2016 happened, people got angrier and more tired of our collective bullshit reality, and suddenly Justin Timberlake was the trolls guy with a really annoying song on Top 40 radio and Twitter takes that simply were not fit for the time. So in 2016, an actor named Jesse Williams made a speech at the BET Awards calling for an end to police brutality in the US, as well as condemning the entertainment industry's ongoing gentrification of black culture. Justin tweeted that he was inspired by the speech and was promptly called out by a black journalist named Ernest Owens, who told him to stop appropriating black culture through his music and to apologize to Janet too. In a now deleted tweet, Timberlake responded with, "Oh, you sweet soul, the more you realize that we are the same, the more we can have a conversation. Bye." Instead of inserting my own opinion or analysis here, I'm just going to play you the words of the journalist who had this interaction with him, because his perspective is, more important than anything I could really add to this, and the full article is in the description down below if you would like to read more.
I can still remember how annoyed I was when I saw his tweet. Timberlake, who has a long history of appropriating the musical stylings and aesthetics of black artists, was inspired yet again by a black man who was calling out the exploitation of black creators. Timberlake and his blue-eyed soul was benefiting from a racist system that prioritized white artists who perform R&B over black artists who invented the genre. Timberlake and many others wouldn't have reached such career heights had it not been for their mix of talent, white privilege, and the racist industry that favors them more for their mainstream appeal.
This criticism of Justin started to pick up the further we got into the Free Britney movement in 2020. If you're unfamiliar, Britney Spears was trapped in an abusive conservatorship by her father for many years of her life, which prompted a rally of fans to advocate for the termination of the agreement so she could get her life back. Because of Free Britney, many documentaries were done on the subject and inadvertently put a lot of scrutiny on Timberlake and his actions back when he and Britney Spears were dating. I'll get into the backlash surrounding Britney's book in a bit, but I did want to note that after the release of the documentary framing Britney Spears, Justin did apologize for his behavior during their relationship, and for the first time, he also issued a public apology to Janet Jackson.
I've seen the messages, tags, comments, and concerns, and I want to respond, he said. I am deeply sorry for the times in my life where my actions contributed to the problem, where I spoke out of turn, or did not speak for what was right. He continued, I understand that I fell short in these moments and in many others and benefited from a system that condones misogyny and racism. I specifically want to apologize to Britney Spears and Janet Jackson both individually, because I care for and respect these women and I know I failed. The second page of the statement addressed how the industry is flawed. It sets men, especially white men, up for success, he wrote. It's designed this way. As a man in a privileged position, I have to be vocal about this. The statement continued, still, I have not been perfect in navigating all of this throughout my career. I know this apology is a first step and doesn't absolve the past. I want to take accountability for my own missteps in all of this as well as be part of a world that uplifts and supports.
And I guess in most cases that would be the end of it, you know? He apologized for his transgressions toward Britney and Janet, and whoever was going to accept that apology and ride with him after that point was going to, and that was gonna be it. But then Britney Spears released her memoir, The Woman in Me, and everything sort of shifted. Okay, so I have a full video about Britney Spears' book, The Woman in Me, that came out last year. If you would like to go see that, I pretty much break down all of the highlights from the book. But here's a brief summary of events in the book as it relates to Justin Timberlake. One of the more common ones that everyone knows is that after she and Justin Timberlake broke up, he released the music video for his song Cry Me a River, in which a Spears lookalike cheats on Justin Timberlake, who is depressed in the video, and that very much shaped the misogynist narrative of Britney Spears in the media going forward, painting her as this slut that broke Justin's heart when in reality he was the one kind of sleeping around and cheating. He apparently broke up with her over text in 2002 while she was filming the music video for Overprotected. And perhaps the biggest revelation, Britney was at one point pregnant with Justin's baby, and Justin encouraged her to get an abortion, saying that the two of them were not ready to have a baby in their lives, and because they didn't want anybody to know about the pregnancy or the abortion, they decided to do a home procedure that ended up being a very painful and traumatic experience for her. And listen, I'm not gonna weigh in on the ethics of what two people have done or will do in their private, personal lives. What I will say is this was clearly a very traumatic situation for Britney Spears, and so was her relationship with Justin Timberlake in general. She speaks a lot about it, she speaks a lot about how it still impacts her to this day, and this kind of repositioned Justin in the narrative from cringy, washed-up guy with the annoying Trolls song to public enemy number one. And am I gonna say that's wrong or unfair? No. I think there's a good population of people out there at this point who want to see Britney Spears vindicated for all of the ways in which she has been mistreated by the media and by her own family. She is a victim of a lot of evil systems within the entertainment industry that failed her tremendously, and you can debate Justin Timberlake's role in that. You can debate whether or not he was too young to be aware of his actions and his behavior at the time. You can personally decide whether or not his apology on that front is enough for you. And on a lighter note, you can decide whether or not this comedic retelling of Justin Timberlake's use of a black scent is forgivable cringe or egregious cringe.
Walking our way was a guy with a huge blinged-out medallion. He was flanked by 2 giant security guards. Jay got all excited and said so loud, "Oh yeah, faux shiz, genuine, what's up, homie?"
All of this to say the narrative is not looking good for Justin Timberlake right now, and that fact is not coinciding well with the fact that he is planning a new music comeback following his rather negatively received and forgettable pop record, Man of the Woods. It came out in 2018, you probably didn't listen to it, but all of the pieces were there at the start, you know, he was doing more public appearances with NSYNC at award shows and stuff, he was hinting at new projects with them. He has a new full-length project coming out in March, and he has also released a single called Selfish, which hasn't made much buzz from what I've seen. Ultimately, no matter what he does next, I feel like he's going to have a hard time getting this comeback off the ground because so much of the public now sees him as a continuous instrumental part in the subjugation and mistreatment of Britney Spears. Whether that's entirely accurate or not, it is alienating a part of his would-be fan base, which is like young women. Although it is worth noting that Britney Spears has actually released a statement in which she apologized for the things that she wrote about Justin Timberlake and has praised his new music that he's put out so far. Ultimately, I don't really know where Justin Timberlake goes from here, you know? Because like I said, young people aren't really into him. I don't think men find him all that cool anymore. I think maybe he could still court the millennial and Gen X NSYNC fans. Honestly, the most profitable move he can make right now is to make a pivot to like right-wing grifting. Complain about how you've been canceled by the woke mob and make one of those rich men north of Richmond bullshit songs. You'll suddenly have a bunch of terminally online alt-right weirdos up your ass. Thank you so much for watching, you guys. My question today is, which artist would you like to see make a major comeback? Let me know in the comments down below. A reminder, I have a Patreon where you can subscribe for just $2 a month for extra bonus content. I'm on social media. You can follow me in the link tree down below. Thank you again to CareOf for sponsoring today's video, and I'll see you next time.